session will start imminently. If you are interested, please come to this corner of the room. That's corner
Hey, Halloween!
This is the wonderful volunteer.
Hey!
They are learning to tell us and then we will start up this thing. All of my questions, request, questions come line up on the left over here. Line. Every in the third, if one ask for one, back to back on the third. Any questions? I know who you are and I'm fighting later.
In the SCA, I'm just Anachronism here. Canada, for those of you who don't know. My family, my name is Gavin Fisher. I am the ombudsman for Ursula, Banfhidhleir, and publications.
Hi, I'm Jeff Lord. Outside the SCA, I know there's Exchequer. I'm from Peerages, Huntsville, Alabama. I am the ombudsman for Onstewart, Ontier, Ellesmere, Glenavon.
Hi everybody, my last name is James. People on this blog. I'm mainly on the country. From Onstewart and Austin, Texas. I'm ombudsman for East, West, Paladini, Herald, and
I'm Melissa New Ursula. My family, that's the Schreier. I am the Society Seneschal. I live in Candlemas near Peerages, which is St. Louis, Missouri, so this was not too far away.
Good afternoon. My name is Joanna Stovall. In the society, I'm known as the Honorable Lady Jerusha, formerly of Vibrant and currently specifically Las Vegas, Nevada. So I think I won the contest really throughout the project today. I have been a member of the society for almost 25 years. I have held offices at the local and regional level. I have worked for the society and was unceremoniously fired from my position as contact manager for the SCA Facebook page in 2016 on the word of the Queen of England. I have also been blackballed from the So, when I read Jessica's account of her treatment as a volunteer, I believe it. I still believe it. The SCA has been very good to me. It's where I met my husband. It's where I have met friends that are as important as my family. It's where I learned to be an adult. It made this brown girl from the hood into the woman she is today. And that is in spite of the treatment that I have received due to misogyny and the desire of others to exclude me from the light. I have written to the bod several times of changes and suggestions that need to be raised. I never really actually received a response. I chose to fly up here from Las Vegas because I thought I could have a chance to finally share my thoughts with you. There is a lot of anger, frustration, and disappointment from myself and many people who I have spoken to in the SCA. We are sick and tired of being ignored, gaslit, and seeing nothing at the highest level. The board of the SCA Board of Directors continues to use various tactics that may have worked well in the past. I'm specifically talking to you guys about the refusal to make changes to the basic government, tone information, how every action the board takes shows a distinct lack of consideration for those who are outside the power structure of the SCA. Recent examples of this include the messages that were direction and communication from the board of directors. Final example would be continuing lack of response to honest and sincere proposals for change. Specifically, I'm talking about the situation. Gentlemen from Paladini who wrote the proposal and didn't receive a response until this morning. And basically, there's nothing to do. The standard operating procedure in Microsoft this body has been to punt problems down the road and hope that everyone eventually forgets about whatever it is that caused outrage and ignore any suggestions that may improve it. For years, this strategy has worked, and that is exactly what you're doing right now with this research. Well, I'm here to tell you it's not really working. Myself, many members of the populace that I've spoken to both on Facebook and in real life, and have options now for how to spend our free time. We're no longer interested in being told it's being taken care of, or we are working on this internally. We are not going to just wait around and hope for the best. We want answers, transparency, equity, and we want them in the form of tangible action, not just pretty words on the website. If the SCA does not start to seriously consider reform, it will die. Change starts to come. In China, there's a set of crowns called the Soldoni Express. Inside the King's Crown, the following words are inscribed. You rule because they believe. It is my opinion that the SCA board is a problem. I don't want to see this happen. That's why I'm here. And my call to action to both you and to the populace at large is this. If what I have said, I will be publishing my statement in my personal Facebook page. If you feel the way I do, please take this statement as a template, insert your own experience to it, and send it to the board of directors so that they understand what the rank and file of the society truly thinks. Because I think that that is something that is missing in this whole entire process. Thank you very much for your time.
Would you like us to respond in any way?
If you want to, if you just want to respond, I plan on emailing this to you.
That's actually one of the things I was going to request.
Yeah. Oh no.
One of the things that we get at board is when we're making decisions. One of the things I want to make sure the populace hears is that is in part because we do not get feedback often enough. We get them in those little spurts of something big happen. Everyone gets flashed up and then there's nothing. The board meetings are virtual because of COVID. We have had until this most recent one, an average of about 35 meetings globally. That is a very small portion of the entire SCA. We really want you to participate. Let us know. We are trying to make changes. It's difficult because we are 7 individuals who have different viewpoints and we're constantly changing every 7 days. So some of this does have to come up every now and then so we can revisit it. Do not let us forget. Please add that last bit about volunteering. Because we are getting an expert to try to help us. We looked back at the 2019 roadmap and did not make significant progress.
Good. Okay, I am Dave Ursula Mortimer, owner of the world, Master of Show Hearts. I would like to ask, in addition to events such as this, and thank you for this, what are the current plans for improving communication with the membership? going those directions.
I'm not sure I'll have a good answer for you for this. Part of this is we are trying to have virtual town halls. We have this more often. We take question and answers very well. We are working on how to improve our overall communications. The communications office is helping us move that forward. They are true professionals, and I love the work they do for us. It's getting better as we get better over time. Of our corporation. In addition to that, for the DEI purposes specifically, we will have published goals. We work with the new officer and the external consultant to be published at least on a quarterly basis in order to show how things are improving.
Will that begin with the next quarter?
I don't know if we'll begin at the next quarterly meeting or the one after. I'm not going to make a commitment on that. I don't know how much information the outside consultant needs before we can set something. We'll at least are intended to have them on board by the next quarter, so we can start. Yes, please.
We also work in conjunction with our society officers, or corporate officers. And so part of it is working on improving our communication with them as well, and teaching them how to communicate better with us so that we're making sure the flow is coming not only from the membership, from the officers, and then back down to the officers and directly to the membership. So we're always trying to improve the communication, and the communication officer that we've taken on board, she's helping us learn, and she's definitely educating us, and we're taking all her suggestions to my board. We try to respond as we are able. We sometimes get hundreds of emails a day, but we do try and respond, and we do read every single email that we want. Thank you. May I offer a suggestion? One of the things, I've sent feedback on all of the major issues during my membership. I don't send feedback lightly, but when it's called for and I feel like I can contribute, I do. And I've never received anything back in any form. It would be very helpful, for example, if you're establishing the report. If you get all the comments for and against, if you could make a statement that says, we received comments with these viewpoints, we decided to do it this way because. That would be so valuable. Thank you for your time. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brighid of Red Spheres, and I want to ask you before I ask a question. Have you considered or what barriers stand in the way of allowing the Exchequer officers to do things with it is a rather significant financial burden on some of the officers of methods in particular, as all of our service providers only accept credit card payments.
We actually had a very recent discussion about this. Thank you.
Yeah, but we are investigating options, and we do encourage people to reach out to the society to make sure they understand it is a very important option, and it should be approved. How that happens, I guess, is technical, because I'm not.
No, we are doing options, and we do want you to the membership to reach out to the treasurer and the Exchequer of the society, make sure they understand this, because they're the ones that get the guidance on that. Each have our areas of speciality, but as you sure people can understand, finance is a very complicated area, and we don't want to jeopardize our status, so it's a place where we need to tread very carefully.
So like, it sounds to me that like the next step for it doesn't matter here. It sounds like reaching out to the society would be a valid next step if you want to tax.
Definitely need to get on your communication with us and the treasurer.
Let me make sure that please email the society treasurer and Exchequer and copy the society treasurer.
Yeah, make sure John is the treasurer.
All right, so Exchequer, treasurer, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm Dr. Banfhidhleir. And I have a question about the sanctions. Probably the sanctions manual where it suggests that subject how a board sanctions can obtain the write-up of the circumstances and the facts of the events surrounding sanctions. How does one go about trying to receive that information?
I guess this is me.
That's you.
Right to me, there's a lot that we can't, for legal reasons and other reasons we can't reveal. And our policies say straight out that we're not going to tell who made complaints, who did anything. I was just reviewing the investigation manual, and it specifically says that you can statements that you have made and so forth. As far as the circumstances of sanctions, we try to explain that as much as possible in the communications that happen without revealing. There are some people, and it's going to stop people, there are some people who may get sanctioned or who may bring a sanction against someone else and claim against someone else who might harass somebody. We want to prevent that. So we try not to give information that leads to that. But basically, it's right to my office, I give you what I can.
And sometimes that's nothing.
Sometimes that's not much, yeah.
Sometimes that's nothing.
Sometimes it is nothing, especially in old sanctions. My records do not go all the way back to any time.
Does it require an action of the board to authorize you to release any information you think is shareable?
Well, I suppose one could write to the board and ask for
One
them.
has to be
It's within the purview of her office. Yeah, no, it's within the purview of her office. She doesn't need to seek our permission to.
Yes, confused, but
And I don't blame you for being confused. It's over the decades, the sanctions process has changed.
Yes.
And so it's not always been what it is now. There were certainly times that some of the Society Seneschal may not have kept as good a records as they should have. And that is an issue that we have to face every day.
Good afternoon. I'm Gwyneth Banfhidhleir. I've been a member of the SCA for 40 years. Since that time, I have seen tremendous growth in the size of the kingdoms and the number of the kingdoms. My question to the board of directors is, since I have heard you represent multiple kingdoms in your ombudsmanship, is there any movement or consideration afoot to expand the membership of the board of directors to better accommodate the number of kingdoms and the population therein?
I'll speak to it briefly from a recruiting point of view. There's not discussion to expand the board per se, but if anybody ever looks at the number of nominees that we have, it's an incredibly small list based on the membership we have. We can only choose for volunteers from what the suggestions were given. And as we all know, even on a local level, our membership is very taxed to give of their time. And the board of directors is a very labor-intensive and time-intensive commitment. So first of all, just to get up my own podium for recruiting, I would love to have more people send in recommendations, nominations. You can nominate yourself. Nobody ever knows where the nomination comes from. Like, we don't put a star next to your name saying this person is nominating themselves. We would love more input. We would love an opportunity to represent different kingdoms in the representation on the board. As to your specific question, increasing the size of the board, that has not been discussed since I've been on the board recently, and I'm a very new attorney. Thank you.
Hello, I am Sir Wigthegn from the Barony of Brendoken here in the Middle Kingdom. My question or comments are more around recruitment and social media. So as I look out at the attendance here, it is not uncommon to see people in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and older. We do not see many younger people here. That seems to be common throughout every kingdom that I've visited. And granted, I've only visited a handful of kingdoms, but wanted to understand from the board of directors position, what's the strategy on recruiting new members and working on bringing new blood into the SCA. On top of that, our social media is an excellent recruitment tool, but our social media seems to be bogged down by policies. and bogged down by the fact that the technology isn't where the younger generation is at. We focus a lot in on Facebook, we focus a lot in on websites, but if anyone's familiar with social media, Facebook is for the older generation. Great for people my age, I'm 42, and older, great. But my 21-year-old daughter refuses to use it. Everyone that I talk to refuses to use it. So what are we doing to allow for us to do more recruitment on social media, specifically YouTube? YouTube is the most common platform on social media across all ages. And yet, from the SCA's perspective, it's disjointed and mass, essentially. So just wanted to understand the strategy around social media and recruitment.
Really, really good question. It's actually something I've discussed several times. We have a wonderful communications officer who's got a whole.
She's educating us.
Yes. He just put out a whole set of a map going forward to do just the things that you're talking about. So we'll set up some video blogs. We'll set up some, like you said, some town meetings on Facebook and on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel now that's getting better. It is a mess. We understand. It's getting better. We have Twitter account now that's getting information out. We're getting it. Give us a little time. It's actually in motion.
Is there a published roadmap or strategy or anything like that that you could share with
I don't think it's been published yet. It's being worked with our communication officer and our social media officer, who is 25.
Yes.
John Lucas.
And the two of them have good synergy and are helping bring us old folks in. Because you're young and like. That's
And again, if you're going to bring or could point us in the right way, please send your recommendations up to us.
That'll be part of my.
And we do have other mediums that are approved for social media. That's not all the officers know how to do.
And this is one of my own personal things. Facebook is actually for the older demographic of us, but we want to recruit from all demographics. We want to hit everything. So yeah, we're a little slow on the youth sometimes, but we're moving towards getting that as well. But we also want to hit all the ones that everyone's using all the way up and down. So we want to have the TikTok accounts. We want to have the YouTube. We want to have
Don't mess with TikTok.
But we're working on it, and that's good. Absolutely.
And is there anything to drive recruiting the younger generation?
That's part of what they're looking at and how to do that. And I think it'll be part of the DEI strategies that come out to recruit younger and different.
And more diverse.
Yeah, more diverse groups.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry. My wife got me. I apologize.
If I may interject on the subject, my personal YouTube channel, on which I record multiple SCA events and have for years, has a greater subscriber base than the YouTube channel of the Middle Kingdom. So there is plenty we can do.
I think there's one thing we found out during COVID is that, we have learned so many new ways to communicate with the membership over COVID because the membership is teaching us how to do that. And we're seeing that and we're trying to learn from the membership and take our guidance from that example, wonderful examples. Because some of the programming that's out there on the internet is amazing.
Your pardon for interrupting. Thank you.
And to look back on recruitment, we want younger people to be recruited for board nominees as well. Not a social.
I'd like to point out that I actually applied for and was interviewed for tactics when I was like 22 years old and never received anything.
I'll make note of that, but people would appreciate feedback on the interview process. Thank you.
Hi, Robert Thorne, Baron Middleton from Cyrus Hall. I guess this would be more of a question for you. Is there any way we could restructure the chronicler requirements on newsletters? If we have everything online and it's easier to access,
don't know that that's exactly the Seneschal question, actually. Sure.
So what surprised me coming on the board is some of the statistics that, while I could have gotten them outside the board of either the consumer or you have a lot of people that still get printed in more than I would have thought, several thousand.
I actually prefer them, but I'm the minority.
So it does limit our format of what the newsletter size is anyway. But some kingdoms have solved that by adding addendums or supplements. And they're on with the other newsletters that just go out monthly on the website. They don't print it. We are looking at some of the communications aspects of how we tie all the different types of communications together as well in order to improve our consistency and target penetration into the different areas for people who like this stuff.
It's like, I guess, our thing is we struggle to find anybody to submit articles to ours. So quite honestly, most of our newsletters are just the bare bone requirements.
Honestly, this is struggle forever. I was a local chronicler in the late 80s and same problem.
Yeah. So it's, if we have this in print, but we can also find this over here, we necessarily have to require berries and groups who have like the chronicler if we can use it in webmails or vice versa.
That's a kingdom law.
Not really, because a newsletter is required for
Yeah,
But it doesn't have to
newsletter, you have to have
be
content.
yeah, it doesn't have to be printed, it doesn't have to be the monster, you have to have the newsletter, and the bare minimum is a calendar of events.
I actually did a presentation of that not too long ago. It was that could be combined with another office. And there's nothing in front of the policies or the core of this can't be combined with the minister or social media or whatever.
You see the wheels turning?
So I have a follow-up question to the previous question I asked about board representation membership. I am also curious about the application process. Once someone applies to be considered for a member of the board of directors, what is the process that happens after that? And how are they selected or declined as a potential member?
I could do that. What happens is you receive a nomination either from the person or from somebody else. If it's from somebody else, we reach out to that candidate. We advise them that they've been nominated for the board of directors. We ask for both a modern and SCA CV resume. And as far as selection process, we look at the skill set that we need at any one given point in time. Because as you understand, there's various things that need to be addressed. There's communication, there's HR, there's legal, there's financial. We want as many skill sets represented as possible. So we tend to look at the CVs and see what slots we need to fill at that point in time. We try and interview people as we are available. I personally, being on recruiting now, when I travel to other kingdoms, I would try and introduce myself to people who have been nominated and try and interact with them. We also welcome people who have been nominated once they get their CV and stuff. If you want to have a phone call with one of the directors to get better informed on what being on the board involves, we also will totally facilitate a phone call or a Zoom call so that you can get additional information, especially if you want to make a decision whether or not you have the time or want to be considered for the board. So we're trying to open up the communication. Does that help? Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. I was just curious about the process itself. Once someone indicates an interest in serving at a greater level, what's involved in the
Yeah,
process?
basically you reach out to the board or our EA officer. She will send back an email letting the people know what information we need, offering a teleconference or a meeting with any kind of board member, and we try and answer as many questions as possible at that point in time. And then we interview people as we see the skill sets that we need to come into board.
Okay, thank you very much. Was anyone able to hear in the back requirements for board membership or board consideration? Or the fact that there is a process?
Nominate your friends, nominate yourself, please. Allison has something to add.
Yeah, I did. So the reason names are published is to get commentary from the populace, and Many years ago, I was on the board and I was in charge of recruiting for a while, and we used to get a lot more commentary. I don't think much comes in anymore, and that's
We want positive and negative commentary.
Yeah.
All too often, people will
Or
write.
that when TI used to be mailed to us, versus TI was a subscription that was part of the membership at the time, and then it was split. So that
Not.
I think the newsletters are supposed to
Yeah.
publish. I think the newsletters are supposed to
And on the
publish.
webpage.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. My name is Macrina, Archangela Paladini. I'm from the Middle Marches, Columbus, if you don't know it. My question for the squad is, I heard you say things like, we're really, really wanting to increase diversity. We're interested in recruiting from every demographic. I saw the commentary from the VOD after the conversation online regarding your dealings with the DEI segment of what is no longer existent, right? I saw all of that, and there was a lack of accountability and a good bit of gaslighting, as was mentioned. I want to know what your commitments to both seeking diversity actively, addressing internal concerns and problems, and creating accountability between yourselves and the populace regarding DEI issues and inclusivity. We've all committed to DEI training. In fact, every board member has now completed DEI training. We are in the process of interviewing new DEI officers. The position has never been eliminated. Nope. Just because an office is vacant doesn't mean the office does not exist. I know it seems like that's a membership, but the office was initially created right before COVID, and we learned a lot from that process, and we learned a lot from our DEI officers. We've got wonderful information, but we've also learned that we've evolved, and now we need help defining that position for our own governance, which is why we are going to reach out externally to find out how we can do this better. We're going to interview professionals to give us instruction and advice, and we're going to take their advice, and we're going to try and communicate that with the membership as best as we are able.
Yeah, I don't have much to add outside of, we can't talk about these issues in general, that's always the case for any corporation. But as far as accountability, we do plan on having accountability on what the milestones are, when they're going to be happening, and the progress on a quarterly basis.
And when will the first check-in of that be?
I don't have an answer for that today, because we don't have the experts on the officer on board yet.
We discussed it extensively actually at a recent meeting, and we decided that it wasn't appropriate for us to put out milestones until we have somebody help us define what those milestones should be. Like, we have a vague idea what they should be, and we had a very heated discussion about this. But we feel that we need professional guidance within our governance to know what kind of milestones we should be setting, what's realistic, what's appropriate for our membership, what the priorities should be. Because clearly it's a very intense and heated issue, which we want to make sure we address it as professionally as possible. And we don't want to gaslight, we don't want people to feel ignored. And we're trying our best to deal with that by reaching externally from the corporation. Thank you for your time.
Different question.
You recognize me.
So my question is based off of the proposed fifth peerage. The first thing is to recounter one of your earlier statements of you lack feedback from us. I remember 25 years ago when this was first brought up, and it was quasi taken seriously, but not really. 25 years worth of discussions and feedbacks and polls and census and stonewall and forgetting. How's that going?
We're going to ask you
I wanna
a
cover one.
question.
Oh,
Please repeat the question for people at the back.
So my question was, boil it down to the status of a fifth peerage that's been in discussion for 25 years.
So, I'm going to cover a little bit more on that as well. So, in that, depending on how you count it, and this is one of those fuzzy things that happen in the SCA, there are already 5 periods. Patent of arms for royalty is a iffy one for some people, especially kingdoms who don't have them. But in that 25 years, we created a 4th period. We created the Master of Defense.
I remember one of the comments was the lack of participation, which even on your own last census, archery alone had more participants than rapiers did at the time of creation.
So, I don't know that archery is inappropriate by itself. We're still, that's what we're
I'm
talking
in
about.
favor of everybody.
But yes, we did have a 4th one created. There's been discussion of it. Between the 2 censuses, so people are aware, we had a 50% reduction in the number of people responding. So that is part of it. When we put out for things for commentary, and we'll talk about what we're putting out here shortly, we don't get a lot of feedback. We generally get half a dozen messages for changes for before. The Master of Defense got a significant number. I expect when if the next one goes out, it will too. Most things do.
I know I personally sent 10 emails, all of which have been replied. Thank you for your response. It is getting passed on to whoever it's supposed to go.
Our responses don't look like that quite as much.
It should be in there.
Yeah.
So, at the upcoming, we talked about this at the last board meeting. I stepped up as the ombudsman for the Peerage Committee at the end of April. At that, between then and now, we've got a wording change suggestion
From the peers.
from the Peerage Committee. We got 2, and we looked at them, we discussed them. Much discussion, because we have to make sure that before we ask the populace, we have to make sure that this is something that we think will stand up. So the upcoming conference call, we're going to take a look at that again. We got it late. We got the addendum late before this last meeting, so we couldn't. If you don't get it to me, yeah, if you don't get it just beginning of the month, we're not going to do anything with that.
Right.
But
even though you have an entire 3 months from the last meeting.
When he says we're not going to do anything with it, we do discuss it. We're just not going to make rush decisions.
right. So exactly. So we're going to look at that at that meeting. And after that, I will contact the Peerage Committee. I know that they talk to people. I will contact the Peerage Committee and let them know what we have decided. What we hope to do is be able to put out something to talk about. But I'm not going to guarantee you that. And we got that on. I'm not going to guarantee you anything. Because right. In the end, I'm one person out of 7. Right. But that is fully the intent. If you want to talk these things, and the best way for us to get popular feedback is to ask directly for it.
We also make sure if and when we present anything, that the wording is appropriate. We're not going to have to revamp it and put it out again and again and again. We want to try and get it as succinct and accurate as possible if and when we put out something.
With the popular feedback maybe, we like all of this part, we hate this portion right here. And we have to take that into consideration. But you're going to hopefully you'll see something soon.
This will be our last question.
Hello, I'm Marcus. I'm a Knight of the Society and a servant of Midgard. I have heard several statements from all of you so far this evening that are just plain problematic. You are saying that you want feedback, you are saying that you want communication, but when it's given, and this is universal, every single person in my 20 plus years of being in this organization has said that it's like talking into a black hole. myself included, I have sat on the curia of this kingdom and watched communications go into a black hole when it goes up to society. You say that we need to communicate to society about credit cards. We did multiple times, and we've gotten nothing. What's the threshold? What is the threshold of communication that's necessary for us to finally get some real feedback? Further, why are we being told that you need to go outside of the organization for DEI training when we had a professional DEI person holding the office already? She did it mundanely. And the way it was handled was beyond not just bad optics, it was an unforced error. You're hearing the populace say that they feel gaslit. You are hearing the populace say that the reason they don't communicate is that they don't ever get anything back. You can't put this on them. This has to be on you. You don't need to look outside. It doesn't take a genius to say, we should probably communicate. I don't understand, and I suspect many of my fellow populace members also don't understand why there has to be such a wall. Even now, even in this meeting, when we're being told multiple times over and over that we don't communicate, yet when we do, we get nothing back. I don't know if there is.
I can't speak to prior board's action. All I can do is be accountable for my own and the 6 other people I work with, who I intend to be accountable with. So I am taking your feedback to heart. And we are working very hard on communicating, and you notice I'm taking notes to make sure that I can communicate with the rest of the directors, to make sure they understand how strongly you guys feel about this. And I want to make sure that the feedback that you're giving us is getting written down and shared with my fellow officers.
So here's my follow-up question. When? Because every time someone else tonight has asked that question, the response has been, well, I'm not prepared to commit to a deadline. I'm not sure if that's going to be discussed at the next meeting or at the following meeting.
I'll be communicating with my fellow officers when I get home Monday night, probably.
Okay. When can we see communications outward to the populace in a format that is widely viewable by the populace?
On what?
Any platform, pick one, something.
Well, the DEI will depend on when the people are on board. That's why I can't make a commitment to that.
We are in the process of scheduling interviews.
Yes.
With
For the
each side.
week after minutes.
Okay.
The question
So
for the
in
interviews
approximately
are
a couple of weeks, we can expect to see a progress report on what happens in a week and a half?
assuming that there's an acceptable candidate in the pool, which I'm pretty sure there will be. But again, I'm 1 in 7, and it has to be unanimous. It should be announced shortly after.
I'm sure all of the populace will be avidly looking at their communications from the pod.
And Marcus, if you don't hear from us, email me. Reach out to me.
Will do. And if I don't hear back, everyone will know.
I would like to know that anybody is allowed to sign up for the announcements that the board
Exactly what I was going to say.
put out all the time. Sign up for the announcements, see what's coming out.
How do you sign up for the announcements? How do you?
You visit the society webpage and you go to announcements and then you submit your information. And you will get announcements.
And communications, that's why we have a communication officer. We are definitely working on, days of recognition and various communications. And we are trying desperately to improve our outward communications. We understand that is an area where we can vastly improve. That's why we're having this, so that we can communicate with you. I also encourage you at any point in time, reach out to your ombudsman, reach out to somebody you know on the board. You've seen our faces today, reach out to any of us next time you see us if it's not something you want to address publicly.
If you haven't seen enough of us, you can always request to host a board meeting, and we'll come here to your board meeting.
Did you just say we give that to anybody, not just our kingdom's ombudsman?
Yes.
Well,
You're done. You might choose.
Don't have a question.
I do too.
I want to thank you all for coming. I want people to recognize that these people are all volunteers, just like we are. This is the face of the board that has presented itself to us. They've come here to listen to our complaints, listen to our concerns. They told us that they're going to go back. We will wait and see what happens. But I want everyone to recognize and realize But these are SCA people.
Replay.
Yes, these are SCA people doing a job that none of us are doing. We need to let them do it, and we need to hold them accountable. So they're talking about accountability. We will look for that. But I would like to thank them for coming here and making themselves known to us.
Thank you for hosting.
I personally really appreciate the opportunity for some informed civil discourse, so thank you.
We are going to be set for court at their Majesty's pleasure.